IVM.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uncle Please Sit. My name is Tushar Abhichandani and with me as always is my co-host and host Joel Pereira. How's it going, Joel?
It's going well, Tushar. And congratulations to us for not messing up the introduction.
Yes, we have done it. Great things have been achieved.
Because, I don't know, Sejal, sorry, we haven't introduced the guest yet. But
so we fucked it up. Well done. So, ladies and gentlemen, since we fucked it up already, we'll tell you. Today we have another special guest. We would like to welcome on the show Ms. Sejal Mehta. Sejal is a journalist with a background in environmental and wildlife reportage and travel reportage and lots of other reporting because Sejal clearly does a lot of stuff. And how's it going, Sejal?
Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying the introduction so far.
Also, I love the Tushar's repeated use of the word reportage.
Yes. Favorite sort of thing to go back to.
Yeah.
Reportage.
So Sejal, how's it going?
It's going okay. Like Joel said, nothing really has changed for you in the last week, in the last several months. It's all blur. It's all a big blur of lockdown-induced haze.
Have you been out reporting at all?
Not really. We've not yet started going to the... I mean, I work primarily in the marine space right now, so the shores are not... I don't think that it's a great space to be right now. There's crowds.
Yeah.
So, no, not really. Not much. Can't wait though. But soon, hopefully.
Oh, nice. So, as Sejal said, she primarily works in the areas related to the environment and marine wildlife and stuff like that. So, today's topic is also, Sejal is smiling at the awkwardness of this introduction. So, today's topic. Joel, what is today's topic?
Today's topic is very broad but also very focused. It is the environment and why we do not seem to care at all about it.
Or maybe we do. We will find out in the course of this podcast. So we'll see you guys right after this break.
I want to thank Intel for supporting our show. Do you remember when last year we spoke about how the Intel vPro platform is built for business? Well, I'm glad to say we've kicked things up a notch. That's right, Intel is back with a new and improved version of the platform. Optimized with 10th generation Intel Core processors, the platform is just what IT and business users need, especially in times like now when most of us are working from home. The new Intel vPro platform lets you do more of what you want and less of what you don't. So it's better for you and for your IT teams, who really are the backbone of keeping your work from home experience easy and enjoyable. The platform is built to minimize your efforts and maximize your PC productivity, especially when working from home. I can safely say that the new vPro platform gives you more enterprise efficiency with less constraints. Visit intel.in/morewithvpro, that's VPRO, to discover how you can get more done with less waiting. If you're listening on the IVM Podcast Android app, take a look at the screen right now and you'll see a link which will take you directly there.
And welcome back to Uncle Please Sit. As I said, with me as always is Joel Pereira, and with us we also have Sejal Mehta. So Sejal,
Yes.
environment. Today,
God.
talk about the environment. So in your experience, as someone who's covered a lot of the environment, you've covered it all.
Nature. Tushar, let's make this
Throwing words that you've read, beach made. Wildlife.
This is exactly
Nature.
to
Marine.
To my first question. How much of an interest do people show in sort of journalism related to nature, or in general, stories related to nature or wildlife?
I think there's a fair bit of interest. Most people are quite well-meaning, contrary to what we may actually assume. I think a lot of people want to know what's happening, what's going on. I think the reportage probably needs to be slightly less dire. Constantly, if we are going to tell people that आपके carbon footprint की वजह से सभी मर रहे हैं, आप भी मरोगे, planet भी मरेगा, I feel like that might not be a really it doesn't have too much impact. I think when you continue to tell people that they are fucking it up. So I think there's interest. I think it's I think the way you kind of showcase wildlife stories probably needs to be a little more broad instead of just telling people what is wrong. I think it's also really cool to tell people about the amazing stuff that's out there. Make them fall in love with it basically, and then tell them that, this thing you just saw which you loved, it's done.
It's time. Then it's time. So yeah, make them care first.
Thoda dikhao, like I feel like it's, as I think, and I work with a lot of scientists and a lot of naturalists, and the access is amazing, right? Like they're talking about like whales and dolphins and creatures that, you would not otherwise have access to.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that they might be dying, I think it's a cool thing to also tell people about their...
just the wonder of it.
Yeah, like they're really cool. They're like crazy things. For example, I'll quickly tell you about like a hermit crab that's on our shore. It's the commonest man ka manifestation that you can see. Now this poor crab is not a true crab. Okay. So like other crabs, it doesn't have a hard surface. So what the bichara thing has to do is that it has to wait for sea snails to die so it can take their shells and then walk along the intertidal wearing that. That's its home. It's literally carrying its home on its back all its life. And that's not the worst part of it. It also outgrows its shell, which means that it has to look for a bigger house. I mean,
catch a break.
How Bombay can you be, right? Like a bigger, better real estate proposition is always on the horizon for you, but you're constantly having to struggle to get there. So I to empathize like super. Like, so if I tell stories like this, I think people are like, oh shit, like it's so cool. Like it's like me. I said, uski bhi band baji hai, tumhari bhi band baji hai. Like basically, ghar hi nahi mil raha. So you feel that sort of like, yeah, this is damn cool. So I feel we need a little more of that. This
is also like a lot like the web video mantra, like make something relatable.
Yeah. Like I hope we don't have to go to the Rasode Mein Kaun Tha situation where I literally have to make memes and ask people who was in the kitchen.
Like hermit crab.
Yes. So I hope that that's not where we are, though I love it.
But are people doing this? Are people putting out a lot of interesting stuff that is not just the dire stuff?
Yeah. I think wildlife writing is now quite supreme in the change that it's seen in the last, say, 5 years or so. A lot of scientists are writing, which is very cool. I think वो पहले नहीं होता था.
But is that writing accessible?
Some of them are, which is why I have a job. Because a lot of scientists can't actually say, like they don't see the wonder because they've been following this one creature for 6 years. So I think anything it does now seems like commonplace. Whereas I'll come in and I'll say, oh my God, this is what it does. Oh my God. And they are also like, yeah, this is what it does. It's amazing. So I think that communication bridge needs to happen a little more.
Yeah, this is, a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were speaking to a guy, a doctor, who was also a liver specialist and does a lot of work in pseudoscience. And he was saying the same thing, like, that one of the reasons why, increasingly people are believing pseudoscience when it comes to medicine, especially like, herbal stuff or these random like grandmother's remedies, is because the science is not being communicated to them properly. And it's a problem that I think a lot of scientists are having nowadays.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying?
Sorry, what?
No, and it's just I guess easier also to spread misinformation in this regard also, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just easier to tell people. Like I was talking to this scientist about the bats outside my house, and I only get interested in something if I'm going to write about it. And there's these flying foxes outside my window, and I observe them for a year, and they're really loud and noisy. And I just wanted to tell him. I was asking him, "Ke ye kaise hota hai?" And he told me that these flying foxes, they're so large that they cannot always carry their babies with them. So they leave them on the tree and they go and forage in the night, and then they come back and pick up their babies and take them back to their roost. And I was like a creche? And he had seen this for 6 years, but he had never really considered this as part of he was like, yeah, like a creche. So this is, I think, the very exciting part about the job, because that there is all this fascinating, mad information that is not really in public domain. You can then literally tell people, did you know? And I think that is a fun part about this. I think a lot more of this is happening now than it ever did.
That's great. But also in terms of, do you think people do a lot of this where like you'll put out an article about wildlife and then they'll share it. But then when you ask them about it, they'll be like, "Maine nahi padha actually." It's like in vogue to talk about it and share these things, but no one's actually paying attention sometimes, it feels like.
I feel like that happens a lot of times, and when we were at National Geographic, I think that was something we saw firsthand also.
So also, yes, disclaimer, Sejal and I worked together at National Geographic Traveler eons ago.
Yes.
But yes,
and we immediately tell, right? We thought we put out a great piece and it's getting shared and like retweets, and we are like, oh, ye to bahut hi acha hua hoga. And then at the end of the day, you're seeing the numbers, it'll say 5.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, it is actually true, because sometimes I also share a piece and then I realize that within seconds it's been retweeted. If it's a topic that people are talking about, I'm like, it is humanly impossible to have read this piece in the time that it has been retweeted. Like, you'd have to be a super reader or something to have finished this 2,000-word piece on flying foxes, for example. So I think there's a lot of that appearing cool but not really reading, because I find that out later when I'm saying that piece now where you had where I had said this, and then they're like, they said, oh, I didn't read it. I read, I just didn't do it. So I was like,
that's why I think it's
more and more. I mean, that's why I was thinking, Rasode mein kaun hai ke zyada, like, how do we make this palatable, yaar? It's also an information overload time, no? We are all very fatigued.
No, also I feel like it's also like that old tendency. Remember, like when you Saturn watched like a National Geographic channel, everyone was like, "Ye kya janwar dekh raha hai," or whatever. There's always been this tendency towards sort of disregarding at least some of it.
Also, I feel like when they say that, but you are a wildlife person, I'm like, ye to matlab hi kya hua? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, a person, wildlife person. I said, but I mean, तुम भी जब holiday पे जाते हो तो तुम तो वहीं जाते हो. You go to the mountains and you go to the river and you go to the sea and you go to the jungle. So, I mean, it is as much you as it is me, no? So
and you have these great captions.
Separations.
You have these great captions about being in the cradle of nature and surrounded by these beautiful wildlife.
Riot of colors.
Riot of colors. But do you think this like sort of communication situation is one of the biggest reasons that a lot of the wildlife stuff, the nature stuff, gets sort of neglected?
No, I think it's also very difficult to engage with, Tushar. I feel like certain things are, and we've also talked about this. I feel like Bombay mein hi dekh lo. I mean, look at your life. Not now. I mean, lockdown mein everybody's life is bad. But I feel like when we are working also, I mean, look at our daily life. We are train pe mar ke ja rahe hain kahin pe, pura din kaam kiya hai. People have been yelling at you, you've been yelling back. I mean, the struggle is to get through your day in a city like Bombay. Then you come back home and then I'm like, this tiger died in this place and all. And they'll be like, fuck your tiger, dude, I don't care. It's difficult to engage at the end of a really tough day that you have also had, to engage with something that is happening far away.
Yeah.
So I think it's also tough for people to repeatedly engage with the bad side of it. So it is a tough. It's like politics also, na?
Yeah.
I mean, we have friends who say that I don't read only the news. I don't read it's so negative that mujhe to samajh hi nahi aata. I have too much happening in my own life. And I think in that sense, I probably think you're right, that the communication of it might be slightly difficult to digest, because the news is, I mean, it's more often quite bad.
Yeah.
Do you feel though sometimes that, like, for instance, now everyone refers to the environment has become a series of buzzwords. Like there's environment, there's nature, there's like, if you're a little more aware or well-read, then there's things like words like emission or carbon tax and so on and so forth. And have we come to a point where these buzzwords, where it's enough to just know these buzzwords and not do anything about it?
I think you're so right, yeah, Joel, because एक तो ये climate change का buzzword है ना, वो भी थोड़ा scary है, because we very easily use climate change like as a phrase. Arey, this is all climate change. I think when I've started working on this documentation of the shoreline, for example, climate is affecting the shoreline differently. It is affecting the oceans differently. It is affecting the coast, the civilization that lives along it. I mean, there are so many different ways that climate is affecting individual things. Blanket karke bol de rahe ke everything is climate change without actually, and that's why climate change has actually become very difficult to engage with. It's something that samajh mein nahi aa raha easily.
This reminds me of, so I was in Goa a long time ago, maybe about 10 years ago. And I have this friend who's an environmentalist in Goa. And does a lot of work with the mining. There's that illegal mining that happens in Goa, right? So we were on the beach one day, and I forget which beach it was, and we had gone into the water. Okay, and we're literally now walking into the water, and suddenly about maybe 20 or 25 meters in, right, the floor collapses. Okay, like it just drops. And I turned to him and I asked him, like, is this continental shelf? Or like, what has happened? Like, how is it so close? And he's like, no, actually, the guys, those shacks that we all love so much, basically during the low tide, the sand that is used to build up those embankments, they basically steal it from the water itself, right? From the ocean itself, and build up those embankments. And he's like, we all know it's bad. Right. And when we have a particularly rough storm, and obviously now because there's no breakwater, so the waves are coming in very hard, right? Because they've removed the breakwater. The slope was the breakwater, which they've removed now. So, and then people will just be like, oh, this is climate change or whatever. And it's like, no, this is you are directly responsible. This is, yeah.
It's a big word, na?
Huh?
So easily we use such a big word. Easily we are constantly. It's a safe thing for us to also do. Now, we don't have to engage with it once we've given it a name.
Correct. I think in these situations also, like with this guy I was having this conversation with, he was like, on the one hand, you have all these people, you have tourism, which does affect people's lives, like on a day-to-day basis, right? It provides them with literally bread to eat. And then you have the environment, which is so large and vague that like, yes, we all agree, environment degradation bad. But now, what do I do about it, right? How do you think we can resolve that like conundrum?
So and I'm sure everybody kind of is familiar with how either you are pro development or you're pro environment. And in one or the other cases, you will be anti the other thing. Which I find ridiculous. Like, I think it is just, it is possible for development, which is so necessary. And I am full fan of tourism and anything that can further, like even tourism has also helped a lot of wildlife.
Yeah.
I think places have benefited vastly. Of course, there is so much research on that I am still not privy to. So my view is thoda distant say, but I still feel like there is a way to do this nicely. I feel you can do a development project and you can do science ka input leke. You can do something that works for both. I don't think that it's exclusive of one another, which is how it's made out to be, because then it's easier for both sides to. I'm actually equal blame on the other side as well. I think there's no balance left. It's so polarized right now. And it has always been in this regard, that either you're pro something or you're anti it. There's no way for us to sort of do this properly. So I don't know how to. I don't think I've answered your question in that sense, but I think it is a massive problem.
No, but maybe then I guess what if the focus of it changes from development to say, because we all know at the end of the day, it's about profits, right? It's about economic efficiency rather than an actual need or an actual. There are solutions to a lot of these problems, but it's just cheaper and more. It's cheaper to do it in a way that wrecks the environment, right? Would you say that?
That's what I don't know. Like, I feel there isn't enough information that we have. Even see, here's where science also needs to probably step up and make a lot of its learnings open source. I feel a lot of science is stuck behind journals and paywalls and all of those things, and I don't think we have enough access to actual findings of so many things. So, and when you hear only one side of a conversation, you will probably say, okay. pretty much what it is. Then everything seems like you're either anti or just yelling all the time. But there is data to actually back a lot of things up. But we don't manage to really. Again, it comes to communication. So I think that thoda bahut, if there's more.
So actually, communication only brings me to the thing where I remember when I was speaking to you yesterday, you were telling me about how effective communication has created situations where when wildlife and development has clashed, when you've had effective programs and public communication, things have worked out.
Yes. I think Bombay in that
Bombay
sense,
has a couple of examples, you said.
it's a great example. So, I mean, when you think of which other city we have 47 leopards, wild leopards in Bombay at last count. And this is not just Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is a protected area, but bahar hai, like in RA and Powai, and like we are literally living with leopards. And for a metropolis this size, of this scale, with so much human-dominated movement and lights and crazy kind of everyday activity, to have leopards, share space with you is a huge achievement. But it was not always like this. Like early 2000s, there were, and you must remember, you must have seen mad reports of like massive number of deaths on both sides. Leopard bhi mare ja rahe hain, aur log bhi mare ja rahe hain. Like people are dying. Even like there was this whole thing about building bathrooms for people because they were going out into the forest and they were getting attacked by leopards. And it was, I think, early 2000s was probably peak conflict. But uske baad, I think they, of course, formed this initiative called SGNP for Mumbaikars, where it was so cool that so many people came together. So there are citizens in that group, there's police in that group, there's a forest department in that group, and there are wildlife biologists in that group. These people came together, and media also, by the way. There's also media, which is, because if you remember, pehle when you used to read about leopards, it was always like this animal invades home.
Khunkhar leopard.
Like this leopard ka face close up with like blood here and teeth dikh raha hai, like you're like, my goodness, chill. Like, this is just a wild animal that has strayed into some place. Relax. Yeah. So, but the conversation is like, it's, it's actually thought up the whole night of how to attack you. So, I think these groups of people came together and they did supreme outreach for 10 years, I think. After a decade, now if you see, Bombay mein bahut kam leopard attacks hai. Pehle, when we used to see leopard somewhere, we used to pick it up and put it somewhere else. So the whole thing is that leopard's entire life, it might have friends there, it might have babies, it might have sisters. We don't know. So it has been physically lifted and thrown somewhere. So it is now out of its familiar.
So basically they used to pick up leopards that were found and just dump them in other forests.
In another place. कि यहाँ से बस यहाँ हमारे साथ नहीं, तुम कहीं और ले जाओ. So they just dump them somewhere else and the leopard's woken up after being tranquilized. And he's like, what is this place? So he's suddenly in fact, he's aggressive now. So he wants to kill. But then, of course, धीरे-धीरे, they just kind of realized how to manage crowd control. Police भी आ जाती थी, FD भी आ जाती थी. Media started to be more sensitive towards the... there are two journalists, Ranjit and Virat, who have done extensive work in trying to, sensitize people. These kind of screaming headlines. And I think a decade later, things are... Otherwise, think about Bombay, na, यहाँ पे तुम कहीं पे somebody's peeing, तो 50 लोग खड़े हो जाएंगे देखने को. Imagine a situation where there's a leopard out and about, to have something that is not causing death and bheed jama nahi hoti hai, there's a lot of crowd control. And I think it's huge. I mean, there are leopards here, guys.
No, but it was a genuine fear. I remember when, in the early 2000s, I had friends who used to live in Powai. Yes. And we used to go there party a lot. And they were they would shut the gates of the buildings.
Yeah.
With these with those harmonium grills, so that, and not for security or anything, but because or they would keep seeing leopards on their CCTV cameras and things like that. They would shut the children's playing area, I think, at 7:00, basically when it became dark, because there was a genuine fear of leopards. Yeah,
that's true. That's what I'm saying. That imagine there is a city like this which is coexisting with leopards. I mean, it's actually become a case study. In other parts.
There was that amazing documentary, what was it? The Attenborough one.
Was it Attenborough or that other guy?
The BBC World one, no?
name is from S. I forgot. This is what happens when age happens.
I think it was called Earth or something, no?
Winter, Thana was Steve Winter. Steve Winter was the one who came and photographed all the leopards here, no?
The planet Earth. I think they had done one series on. They had done one bit about urban animals, and they had the monkeys, I think, in Jaipur, and the lions and the leopards in Bombay.
Yes.
Something like that.
True. So I think that those are excellent examples of like things being. तो अभी भी वहाँ पे घर भी है, leopards. Yes, there is fear. I mean, I'm not even saying that this is not a big deal. I mean, seeing a leopard outside it's horrifying.
Oh, I have, on the highway, like when you're leaving Bombay, I remember I used to ride a lot, right? So I was coming back from Pune. And for those of you unfamiliar with Bombay, the northernmost part of the city basically rides through the outskirts of the national park. Okay, so when you're coming from, say, New Bombay, when you're coming to, and I used to live in Vasai at that time, so you pass through this place called Ghodbandar. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was riding, and I was tired because I left Pune at like midnight or something, and I just wanted to get home. And the highway was empty, okay, and I'm riding, and suddenly my high beam is on. I flick my high beam, and I see these two eyes looking at me. And I saw a flash because I didn't have my high beam on entirely. So I flicked it up and down and I saw a flash of a leopard. And I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you felt such fear that your fingers feel numb. I literally hit the brakes because this leopard was standing in the middle of the road, okay? And I hit the brakes and I was going fast, so I was in a high gear and I forgot to pull the clutch. So I hit the brakes and I shuddered to a stop, but my light was still on. And then I realized that the reason why this leopard was not moving was because he had just killed a dog on the middle of the highway. Okay, and he was in the process of dragging it across the highway, and I basically shocked him. And he was refusing to let go. But so he was a little pissed, okay, because he was looking at me. Now, obviously, a leopard could be looking at you and he wants to play, but if a leopard just looks at you like this thing wants to eat me, and so I'm frozen over there. He's frozen over there with this dead dog, and suddenly, then I think from the opposite side, a truck passed and blew the horn or something. So the leopard snapped out of it. No, he picked up the dog and scampered across the road and basically climbed a tree with the dog on him. And I'm still there now with the dog, okay, with the dead dog. And I'm still waiting on the side of the road. And now my brain has become paranoid because I'm thinking, what if the leopard now, because I don't know if this tree, yeah, because now I'm mistaking this leopard with an Ichhadari Nag because I'm like, this leopard wants revenge for disturbing him. So I wait. So I'm standing there. I'm standing there. I wait. I wait for about a minute or so, and then a car and another bus or something pass me by, and I look up and I've seen no sign of this. I'm like, okay, he seems to have gone. I start my bike and I ride away. But yeah, it's
very happy to leave like immediately.
Yeah, that's what I found out later, that they do not want confrontations.
They don't want.
Yeah, but Bollywood has made us believe that animals are very like vengeful.
They are like are paying for our blood every night.
Yeah.
So this Vidya Atreya at once, she's a wildlife biologist and part of the SGNP co-workers group, and she said during a press conference somebody had asked a question to one of the FD guys saying that if you see a leopard, what should you do? So the guy from the FD said, I don't think you have to think about this at all. Whatever needs to be done, the leopard will do. You just have to react accordingly. It was too funny.
Oh,
That's
man.
not a situation where you are really too much in control. You just have to...
There are situations where they actually use it to their... So a friend of mine, her dad used to be, is in the Air Force. Okay, and he was head of Srinagar Air Force Base. Okay, now Srinagar Air Force Base is massive. Okay, there's the Air Force, there's the Srinagar Airport, and there's a full army battalion or a regiment over there. So the entire base is huge. Okay, and they have apparently 3 leopards, okay, which they've tagged. And also he was telling me, and we had gone during winter, during New Year. So it was, it would get dark by around 3:34 in the afternoon. So he was like, look, if you're going out for a walk or whatever, they had these sticks with bells on them. And he said, when you just use the bell and tap the road, and because there are 3 leopards, we keep a track of them, but they sometimes move very fast. And I'm like, if you know they are there, why don't you do something about them? And he's like, you know what? This is an Air Force base plus an airport, plus there are like 50,000 people living on this base. So there are a lot of dogs. And we can't have dogs running around on the runway because, so basically the Air Force has tagged these leopards and they are using them for crowd control, so to speak. Because he's like, we track them, we know roughly where they are. And he's like, since that has happened, there have been no dogs on the base. So
another example of how environment and development can go hand in hand.
Yeah, environment and the military, which is not very well known for being the most eco-friendly.
Hey, don't say anti-national things, Joel, please.
Yeah, we're...
Yeah. What is nonsense? Achha, but so this is a great example of how communication can work to the advantage. What do you think is communicated, in terms of, what is this one example which you see of communication where you are presented with certain facts, but they're often very wrong? Like, for example, I often see this with the whole tree situation. When development happens and they're like, हमने 5,000 tree plant कर दिए, यहाँ पे 1,000 काटा है, and now there we've cut 5,000 trees. And for some reason, the whole conversation is now just revolving around the number of trees.
Yeah, this tree planting thing, no, I have to say that it's all very nice. And I think, of course, more trees are better only. But there are 2 things. If somebody comes to you with a tree planting idea, I think the best thing to ask them is, A, have you found out if that tree is compatible with that place? Mm-hmm. That is the most important thing. Sometimes I feel like people just are very well-meaning, as usual, will say that... हम यहाँ पे पेड़ लगा देंगे and it'll be all fine. Like, for example, a lot while I was doing research for this Flying Foxes, the bat story, Shweta Wagh, who's this architect in urban spaces, she was like, abhi jo urban development ho raha hai, they are actually not thinking only when they're planting trees in new buildings and stuff. They'll plant like these beautiful, weird, like palm tree, for example, so none of your chiku eating bats will come, none of your mango eating birds will come. Your ants will not probably, kind of colonize that place. It's just devoid of certain things that need those fruits. So I think it's just nicer to think about the kind of place you are A, planting in. And B, I feel that there is this entire conversation about trees being the primary thing about nature and environment, which is this green spaces. For example, I feel like our shore, Bombay ka coastline, has octopuses, jellyfish. It has coral, by the way, which is a Schedule 1 species as much as the tiger. And itna sab hai yahan pe, that is a legit forest itself. But we are acquainted with the idea of green being forests and trees being the only place where forests can, where we can label something as forests, that paid katna has become all about the trees. Even when you think about the trees, they think of numbers, Tushar, as you said. You say 5,000 paid ya 300 paid. Arey, but wahan pe pura network tha na paid ka. Like, there were things living inside, around it, below it. It was giving life to other things. Water was happening. There was a network.
A full ecosystem of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to avoid the buzzword.
But we must use them.
But yes, like, it had an entire habitat thing going on. So this worries me sometimes when we think only of trees, which are very valuable, of course, and we all know this now. Yeah. But there are other things, like there are wild spaces should be seen where wild animals live. It has nothing to do with आपको पेड़ दिख रहा है या आपको दरिया दिख रहा है या क्या दिख रहा है. If a wild animal stays there, it is a wild space, and you're sharing it basically. And most of our cities have these things.
But is our coastline being treated like that?
Like a forest?
Yeah. At least in terms of whatever you know of the policy angle of it, or in general the approach towards it.
Well, it was so weird that in continuation of this green only, I think there was some sort of conversation on an online platform. एक तो social media has become such a troll-infested place. कहीं पे बात कर रहा था, and they talked about how the coastal road and the shoreline is changing because of what is coming, and there's also some sort of constructions happening between things to introduce gardens. I think that is also part of a plan.
Also, just to give our listeners context, so Mumbai is currently building something called the Coastal Road, which will essentially pass from the southernmost tip to almost the northernmost tip of Bombay on the western side facing the sea.
Sorry, isn't it a ring road? Isn't it going to be surrounding the eastern side as well?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure about this. I really don't know too much about the actual.
But the basic project is south to north.
Got it.
There is a coastal road happening, and then some parts of the coastline are going to be reclaimed. And it is already underway. It is not even a thing. Like lockdown maybe shuru tha. So it is. So I feel like यहाँ पे also there are certain places where they are going to construct green spaces. And I'm in my head, that is such a weird thought because if you want relaxation and a green space, then you're literally standing on one. Like there is a coast. It is a space. This is where people go to chill. Bombay's shores, if you go one evening to the shore, you will find at any point of time people going there for introspection, people going there to chill with their friends, people going there to every time I've gone, I've seen this ridiculously sweet thing where it's like there's a large number of people who are on video calls with their families showing them the ocean. Every time, they will be like this and they will say yahan pe ye darya, because most places don't have access to coastlines. So it's beautiful. Every time we have gone, there'll be some people who are doing ye dekho and all. And there are people going there for so many things. The intertidal zone is a gift basically to a city. It's a buffer between land and sea. And it hosts some supremely cool wildlife. Like a coral is there, jellyfish. Octopuses come to our shore. They're changing color and all that. So we are looking at them. What is going on?
Yeah, and apparently dolphins also now.
Dolphins, true. And that brings me to that weird where you said, there's sometimes wrong information jo bhi kabhi aata hai. Abhi jabhi, this whole nature is healing while we are inside narrative is happening. So yes, it is getting a temporary reprieve. There is no doubt about that because of pollutants come ho rahe hai. So of course there is some sort of revival of many things. But also the fact is that is a little scary, if we feel like either man or animal has to stay indoors for the world to survive. It's a really unsustainable plan. I think, civilization ke beginning se animal and man has lived together. Humans and animals have always survived together. So your argument is that lockdown mein hum andar baithe hain, isliye nature is fine. That's actually terrifying. I don't know why we are applauding this, because that means that we are only talking about exclusion. Ki jab tum bahar nikloge tab tum wapas, you will destroy everything. But that's not necessary. It's not mutually exclusive. Yeah. You can be outside with the environment and still be good to it. It is a very scary thing. So when they started nature is healing and then there are dolphins have come to Bombay. Dolphins have always been here. Dolphins have been a part of our coastline and they've been seen in these waters always. This has nothing to do with the fact that there is lockdown. So all these things, when it becomes a movement on social media, it's a positive thing. Yes. So it's nature is healing and dolphins have arrived and you're such a killjoy also.
So what are you going to do? Just stay in forever now that you
can't do that. You're scared. What is this conversation where people are saying that nature is surviving because we are not outside? It's not the long-term goal, dude. The long-term goal is ke saath mein raho.
Yeah, I remember during this entire dolphins are coming back and all. One of these, Twitter killjoys was like, "Hey guys, Bombay has a very active fishing community, and wherever there is a fishing community, there is the effluence of the fishing community, which is mostly a lot of dead fish, which attracts other fish, which attracts the dolphins. So please calm down and relax yourselves."
Yeah, but see, that's the thing now, when all of this is killjoy only, because then you know better. When I saw all those things, and they got really pissed with one of my friends who actually replied to somebody and said, "Listen, they have been here forever." I'm trolled for it. He was like, आप लोग positive सुन ही नहीं सकते हो. But he's like, I'm actually seeing something far more positive. I think they are here only. No, they have not arrived now. We have lived with them forever. I'm saying something supremely positive. So it's so scary to even get into a conversation and try and say that, this is not true news.
You are wrong.
But tell me something, Sejal. Like, for instance, we're talking about this positive thing. Like, I remember some time ago, there was a story about how the Thames in London has cleaned itself up. Okay. And also the Hudson River in New York City at that time, like the Thames apparently has been London's sewer for like 10 centuries. And over the last, I think about 20 years, with the British government actually taking an interest and shutting down all the the factories and this and that. So apparently it's come to a point now where there are seals swimming upriver. Okay. And like sunning themselves on the banks of the Thames. And I was reading something about how we should calm down on these kind of stories. And same thing with the Hudson also. Apparently in the US, the Hudson in New York, the Hudson River was so polluted that I think in the mid 80s it caught fire. Okay. And then, the river caught fire because it was so polluted and it had so many
was that fire as good as our Bengaluru Lake fire?
No, we had foam plus fire. Yeah, that was
foam plus fire. We had double.
That was double effect. It was far more spectacular. So anyway, but yeah, the Hudson also after all, they've done a series of things from sealing the river with oysters to shutting down the factories upriver and things like that. Apparently, it's become clean now. And they were the criticism to these stories is that, hey, we should not publicize these things because then people will think that, oh, it's working and I can do what I want. Do you think that's an actual danger, or is that also cynicism gone wild?
Means do whatever I want means it's actually
means that this look, nature is healing. And so basically the fear is that when you communicate these kind of positive stories, people are okay, fine, things are working out and I can I don't need to worry about this anymore.
So apart from the fact that I feel this is a long-term unsustainable thing, I'm quite delighted that there are things that are cleaner now than they ever were before, and that things are, animals are in some places literally treating cities as their homes. And because there's so little movement. So I'm happy with all of those things. But to answer, yes, the danger of it is just that I think that long-term survival is not being counted. No, yeah. अभी के लिए सब ठीक है, but when you start going out and polluting again, they'll again leave. So the idea is just कि long-term sustainability के लिए, how they did this over a period of time, the cleaning of the things so I think repeated effort से ही होगा. For example, it took 10 years for the leopard situation to be now in a place where at least still not without any problems, right? I mean, if you see a leopard, it's still as traumatizing as ever. But at least things are now better. So I think long term में साथ में काम करोगे तो ही you can celebrate this. This blips of celebrations are a bit, that's what scares me. So that the danger of those stories, I feel, is just that it kind of means that हम बाहर नहीं जाएंगे तो सब ठीक रहेगा. And I feel वो तो impossible है ना, बाहर तो जाना ही पड़ेगा.
Yeah.
So since we are on this whole nature is healing situation, do you also think that a lot of our cities, the way they are built, the way they are designed, I mean, to be honest, they aren't designed, they just came up as and when the money and the land and whatever cleared up. Do you think also we notice this more starkly because our cities are also built in such a way that they ignore the environment within which they are built? Like, for example, if you build houses in a low-lying area, flooding to hoga hi har baar. So, are we also in that situation where we're not making enough of an effort to sort of build stuff or do stuff in a way where we understand the surroundings?
Well, actually, a lot of people now in smaller places. So, I'm part of this one writing project with a couple of other organizations, and there's an architectural school that's in it. And they are doing research on one low-lying area like this. And details I'll not give because they've not published it yet.
Okay.
But it's really amazing to see how that entire locality, because they are flooded year and year again, and it's a lot of cost to life and resources. They have started building their homes a little differently. So, for example, it's simple things like their furniture. All of their furniture, most of their furniture, is no longer nailed to the floor. It's things that they can pick up and kind of move immediately if there is a sudden influx of water. So I feel like people are now dhire getting used to the fact that things are changing and probably need to think of things like plumbers, electricians, all of those people in that area are thinking of how to do their wiring differently, so they are now trying to imagine a life where they will probably not be in situations of trouble constantly.
But even in terms of the infrastructure stuff?
Sorry?
Even in terms of the infrastructure stuff, like developing complete areas and roads and stuff in low-lying areas that block sort of floodwaters and floodplains.
You're talking about Mithi, for example.
Yeah, for example, Mithi in Bombay.
In mangroves and all of, even that, now, I mean, at least the city, I think the floods that happened kind of made mangroves at least known people, and the kind of work that mangroves, part of their work also, that they really defend coastlines and those rivers, and they help move things along. It's such a huge part of being a coastal city. I think those mistakes that were probably made in the past. So there was one recent thing where an entire patch of mangroves was, but again, I don't know if that is just... So there are so many tours now that are happening around mangrove ecosystems. Like you see the Godrej entire Vikhroli area and all of... So they've started actual programs where people can come and learn about what mangroves do for the city. I think all of that happened because of what happened with the Mithi. And how things got blocked and the city...
Achha, can you give our audience a little bit of context about the Mithi?
So the Mithi is, I mean, most people in Bombay will know about the significant area that Mithi kind of flows in. And it used to kind of channel and also be a catchment area for a lot of the
monsoon water
movement. Yeah. And because of certain types of construction things that, happened around that place, the Mithi could not do effectively what it had done for all these years. And I think that is probably one area that is now known कि इसकी वजह से हुआ है. But I think there are so many places in our city which we don't really know that how our water system and how disposal of what this kind of collected water is happening. So I think those things, if I think can be, again, the whole thing about if development has to happen, which it has to happen, if it can just include some of the science.
Yeah. But understand how the water flows, understand how the
water works.
Yeah.
Which I think now it is, like I said, the mangrove system ke liye, I think the flood was a really weird, in a really weird way. It became like a window into something that nobody in the city actually even thought about. They look like shrubs. They are like, kya pada hai yahan pe, uske plastic pada rehta hai, kya, we don't know what these low-lying things are. They're not even trees.
Why don't we put sand and make them a beach?
Yeah, because they're like, kya hai? They don't even look pretty. They're like weird, weird length, weird size, weird.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what it was. But I think after the city flooded, and we realized that, boss, these mangroves actually are not these plastic carriers. They're doing a lot for the city.
Yeah.
I think all these lessons probably, I think abhi thoda late, we might have learned it, the hard way.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that systems now at least kind of go hand in hand. I think that would be a huge, huge step.
I think most of the controversial opinions that people would have anyway on this show also, that's what we try to address, right? Would be mostly along the lines of development versus the environment. No, Tushar? What do you think?
Pretty much. Pretty much. I think it's always been like that scenario, right? Where, for example, like even when you mention like, oh, but what about the environment in this case? It was like, you're just anti-development. I'm like, arey, relax, bhai. You live in a place where you do need trees, you do need like clean air, you do need stuff like that. So I think that's always been a thing. And also I think that's always been a narrative that's been built around it, right? Like especially
that's what I mean
we also live in houses only, na? I mean we need infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
Not one without the other. Chahiye dono chahiye, kya kare?
No, and it's also there's also there's also the agenda involved also, right? About like that people who are environmental or whatever are anti-development because they are utopic or whatever, whereas corporations and the government and whatever they have are better at their nation building.
It generally ends up going into that space. But I guess that's a much longer debate, which if we go into will be 3 hours long. But let's again come back to sort of the individual angle towards this also. We've looked at the planning aspect of it. Do you think individual action, Sejal, do you think individual action, like, there's a lot of focus on, you use less plastic, please use less water and whatever, which are great things, which are not bad things. But do you think in doing that, we often sort of ignore the role of corporations or larger institutions or governments, where we're essentially putting the onus of environment conservation or include other buzzwords on individual people as opposed to institutions?
I think that's probably true. So I just did a recent story on e-waste. And I just wanted to know what people are doing with their e-waste. So I started to ask everybody kya hua. There were very shocking replies because there were some people who replied with like, what is e-waste? And you mean, like, what is it that you mean when you say electronic waste? And there are some people who, of course, were doing disposal quite sustainably. And I think the problem is that the figures are really massive and we are literally drowning in e-waste, and it's a very scary situation. But interestingly, we don't hear about it, right? So here, hum log jo bhi kar sakte hain karenge. Like, for example, we will take all our e-waste and we will go to a recycler and all of those things. But the thing is, when I tried to speak to brands about it, and they were ready to answer one question, which was like, what do you do and whatever. But I wanted to also ask them that if there's so much advertising happening for your products, how come we don't see any ads on disposal? Like, because we can do as much outreach as we can. Like, as individuals, we will try harder. We will save things. We will repair things. We will not use them. Like, we will use them until they die. And all of that. But ultimately, hamara to reach itna hi hai. But the brand, if you imagine a brand tells you constantly, reminds you, not once, because unke website pe sab hai, like how to do this properly. But imagine if a brand that you trust and you really like tells you constantly that, hey, you bought this, you make sure that you return this here, or you make sure that you do this. Because each dabba that you get of an electronic item will have an e-waste instruction at the back. It will. So you should probably... So they expect you to look at it and they expect you to do this on your own. But I agree that in the story, I felt like I wish there were more brands who came forward and said, yes, we're not doing enough advertising about this, because they're not. So usme hum jitna kar sakenge, of course we'll do. But it is
until it's institutional.
I do wish that, sorry?
Until it's institutional.
Yeah, and it's not, the reach is small. We can all do collective action and all of that is very powerful, not to even take away, because even that is helping us. But I do feel like I wish that there was more from brands themselves. So, for example, and in individual action only, I went and stayed with this friend in Goa, and I had never thought about things that. So when we were shopping for like ingredients and stuff, he would literally pick up something and say, "This is going to be difficult to dispose." So he'll try to look for an alternative, which I had literally never thought about doing. Like my entire focus is that ये waste है, मैं उसको कैसे dispose करूँ. But this idea of not creating it, kind of so simple, but blew my mind anyway. Like I had not thought only like this. So if he would pick up like a packet of chips maybe or whatever, he would say in there कि ये यार त्रास होगा. Let me see what else is there in like a dabba type of situation which I can do. So I was very, very impressed by that. I thought this was a really nice way to probably, like, if your dustbin is not full, don't throw it out. I said, pura kitna plastic daloge. So all of this I thought was quite cool. The same friend, he works in Marine Life of Mumbai. His name is Abhishek. We were talking about cleanups on the beach, which is also individual action, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is doing cleanups, and it's also another it's become quite popular. And while certain organizations are doing it extremely responsibly, there are a lot of other small little groups that have started, which are, I mean, it's like, chalo, we'll pick up kachra. And my one question to some of those people was like, ये कहाँ जा रहा है कचरा? ये यहाँ से रख के where are you putting your waste? That is also so important. It's a simple question that do you know where this is? Once you pick it up, where are you going to dump it? And they say in the dustbin. तो वापस वहीं गया ना. I mean, you've literally only cleaned the beach right now at this minute.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of young children are getting into that. And my niece had once come and asked me to speak to their friends and all. And we sat around, we picked up waste because I didn't want to be a killjoy to kids. And I said, let's pick up waste. Let's pick up waste. And we picked up all the waste and we sat and then we literally examined it. And I said, kya dikh raha hai? And most of the things they realized came from houses. Like there were packet of chips and there were switches and there were shoes and things that they were throwing out. And I said, so that probably means that, you consume less. I think the real heroism is not that you picked up all this stuff today because that is guaranteed coming back tomorrow. But it is that you have seen that a lot of this is stuff that you're probably using when you don't need. And this is what I think we will never hear from brands that have so much outreach. They will continue to try and, कि इतना भी buy करो, ज़रूरत नहीं है, तू भी buy करो. Like the phone thing makes me feel, a lot of people when they say, अभी upgrade करेंगे phone. That's what the advertising is, right? It's a beautiful new glossy phone is out. And तुम्हारा तो चल ही रहा है, तो भी तुम, you're tempted to buy the new thing. What if they actually told you in the ads that, don't, let's just use this phone, how to repair your phones.
Or just even how to dispose of this one.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ever going to say don't buy it, but yeah.
But I have to also say, not to see, this is the problem with being the writer type, because when you're trying to see the other side, it's so screwed up, Tushar, that I think a lot of the brand store didn't speak to me, but there was one documentation kind of unit that spoke to me, and she said something very cool actually. So I said, brands क्यों नहीं कर रहे भाई? एक बार हमें बता देते कि हम मॉल से पिकअप कर रहे हैं, तो you say how to dispose. So she said, it's really weird for the brand as well, because the idea around this whole e-waste rules that they have got is that you start manufacturing also responsibly. Don't abhi, and that is not. It's difficult for the brand because तुम्हारा आधा सामान चाइना में बन रहा है, तुम्हारा दूसरा सामान, one of your pieces is coming from another place, your assembly is happening in the third place. So all of this, all the metals and all are coming from different places. So when you actually recycle in one place, a lot of those metals you have no use for. So it's difficult for
and it's not sustainable to transport them outside.
Yeah, so it's tough for, फिर उसका क्या करेंगे? So while I think in that sense, they are also not to condone it at all, because I feel like, dude, work around that problem if you have it.
Yeah, you have money.
Yeah, you have money. So, but it did make me think I'm constantly saying, yeah, ye brand, they should. But I also understood that when you're massive corporations like that, and I think it's difficult your supply chain is a bit off. सब जगह से सब आ रहा है, फिर तुम कैसे करोगे? So the shift is to happen, then it has to happen that the manufacture only becomes sustainable. It's the same thing ना, हमारा consumption sustainable होगा तो disposal कम होगा. यहाँ पे तुम्हारा manufacture sustainable होगा तो, but these are very easy things for me to say in this podcast.
Basically, we're
Okay, listen, 2 hours ago, the government of Maharashtra declared 600 acres of the Sanjay Gandhi National, the RA forest to be like a forest reserve. So,
nice. So there can't be any more construction there.
So there can't be any more construction, and they're removing whatever existing construction is there already, like slum rehabilitation and whatever. This has happened like two hours ago, I think. So,
I just got this message before. I'm going to have to now find out what is...
Yeah, your groups must be exploding, Sejal.
Huh?
All your groups must be exploding right now.
I don't know what is happening. I also want to know. I mean, I don't know about these things really.
I guess it is also complex.
It looks great, but I don't know. I'll have to see.
600 acres of land as forest, apparently. Maharashtra government to conserve 600-acre RA land near Sanjay Gandhi National Park as forest. Oh, so they are so it's not already existing forest which they are going to conserve. They are going to convert non-forest land into forest.
Oh man, I hope they figure out how to plant the trees properly.
Saying that the protected area is now being protected, or what is?
Okay, wait. According to this I'm reading, the Maharashtra government on Wednesday decided to reserve 600-acre RA land near the Sanjay Gandhi National Park in suburban Mumbai as forest and conserve the same. The decision was taken in a meeting chaired by the Chief Minister, who said the forest would be the first example of a huge jungle being conserved at the heart of a megapolis. The Chief Minister instructed during the meeting to safeguard the rights of tribals while the area is reserved as forest. Construction of all types, roads, slums, Adivasi pockets and government facilities will be excluded from the first phase of the initiative. The slums in the area will be rehabilitated immediately. This sounds like a good thing. I hope.
Good. I guess once we get the bloop, read the fine print.
Yeah.
It's really good. It sounds quite good.
And as we discussed, I hope they plant the trees properly, keeping in mind the environment.
Yeah. I mean, RA has really, RA, SGNP, that's what I think Bombay, that part of Bombay is this thing. They have very good supporters. In the forest department, in that sense, they seem to be quite informed.
That's good.
So I think and the groups are very strong around it. Like the SGNP for Mumbai, for example, even the same parts of that group are also doing RA work.
Oh.
Like the documentation of the RA leopards and the wasps and the smallest creatures from RA is happening by this group of people. Ranjit, who's a journalist who works with Midday, his and his group. So I think they are fairly informed in that sense that they have a very good support system.
That's good.
These places.
So I think we pretty much covered most of what we're going to do. But I also want to know from your end, like, apart from this conscious consumption angle, is there anything that I can do as an individual when it comes to sort of the environment?
This sounds damn weird, but like make friends with people who know about the environment. Like just have like people in your access. That has really worked for me. I see the thing is, and Tushar, you know about this as well. Like I have said that at heart, I am one consumption junkie. Like if run amok, I would own a yacht. I would have a car. I would like buy.
And I'm sure, considering you live in Juhu, you have friends who own yachts.
Yes, unfortunately, this is true. But I would be that person. Like I would shop like a mad. I would wear things I would consume like a maniac. So I think it's easy for me probably to communicate this to a larger audience because at heart I am like this. So, but I have access now. Like I know so much more about what is happening, even the wonderful parts of it. Like I told you about it and all. That's a small part of what lies out there, right? So I know there is things also, like I know what animals live here and I know how crazy, amazing, personalities they have and all that. And I also know what is threatening them. And so I think these kind of conversations have kind of made me a better communicator because my heart lies here in the castle and the yacht. Yeah. But my sensibilities are now being honed by by people who actively are saying, "Arey bhai, ye mat karo, this is happening," and then you don't have to completely go any side, right? You don't have to. Like if I actually think about all my consumption, then I'll have to probably leave home and live like it's not going to be sustainable for me to just give up everything, right? We can't do that also. So I feel like yahan ka bhi dekho, make your own decisions. Figure out ke balance kahan hai, where you are doing as little harm as possible, but you're also living your life and you're also engaging. The interesting thing is so why did I write about the bats? Not because I'm scared that somebody will cut that tree down, which actually they might, because people think that now bats are causing coronavirus.
Of course.
But they are not, by the way. So, I just wrote about them because they're right here. So when you look at a tree, you look at birds, no? You look for birds. You look for color. Yeah. You will not think of the bats. But now when you, thoda bahut agar aapko pata chal gaya unke bare mein, like they're magicians, their wings are doing weird things. I'll tell you, their wings play 3 roles. Like in the monsoon, you see them like swinging like pendulums on the tree. They have like this waterproof substance on their wings, which acts like a raincoat. What is happening? So this is happening like as I can see them and they're swinging and all the weight that you see of a bat hanging is literally in the claw. It's their body weight. Which is why they can hold on like this and swing while the rain is lashing down on them and the winds are happening. And I'm seeing this in the winter, it becomes like a sweater. In the summer, they are fanning themselves because it's, they're so massive that they literally can create air like that. I'm like, these are all crazy things, right? And they're happening outside your window. So I think I also communicate like this because I'm like, if you just engage a little bit, you'll think the next time somebody's saying Corona aa raha hai, ped kaato. You're like, bhai, nahi hai, they're not spreading. I know this because I've read this piece. So I think individual level pe ye sab to karo and also engage, just engage a little bit. I know it sounds a bit sometimes when you're like, oh God, how will I read a piece about? But not all pieces are telling you that everything is dying. I think find the guys in your life, find the people in your life, your friends who will share wondrous things with you, who will make you engage. And then to khud hi tum decision kar loge whether or not you want to. That is entirely on you. So even as a writer, I am never going to tell you that, listen, don't cut this and don't do that. I'll tell you this is their boss. So aage chal ke you make your own decision. That is literally the role of a writer.
And that is actually also an excellent note to end the podcast on, because that is exactly what we say to our audience every time. We are giving you information. You do what you want to do with it. This is just a primer. So Sejal will now also be the brand ambassador of our podcast from now onwards. So yes, before we go, I'd just like to say, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check our other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Sejal, your social media handles are?
Sejal Mehta 06 on
both Twitter and Insta. Or is there any website or something that you'd want to link people to?
sejalmehta.in.
Okay, excellent. Joel, your handles are?
I am Pereira Joel on Twitter and joelpereira.esq on Instagram.
And I am Yon OK Please on Twitter and Tushar_Abhi on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. See you.
And also, if you guys want to troll anything that we have said on this podcast, don't. If you feel the need to troll anything, go to the fridge, take chocolate and eat some chocolate.
That is a great idea.
I tell everyone who's constantly on a barrage of hate, I'm like, tum thoda chocolate kha lo, you'll be fine. So don't troll.
That is how we will achieve world peace, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Chocolate. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Sejal. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Intel, for coming back to us. We love our sponsors. If you'd like to be one of them, do reach out. So really, really cool week on the network this week, right? Started off with a bang. Abhijit Ganguly was on Cyrus Says. Funny comedian. I think you guys will enjoy that. We had Dimant Parekh on Advertising is Dead. Dimant's the founder of Better India. Govindraj Athiraj is also on Uncle Please Sit this week. That's a really fascinating show which they talk about fake news. On The Habit Coach, there was a crossover event with Aditi Surana from Absolutely Right. I think you definitely enjoyed that. And last but not least, definitely a show I'd love you all to check out. We have a new show called This Round Is On Me. It's hosted by Gauri Devi Dayal. If you remember, Gauri and I worked on a show together called The Kolaba Cartel a while ago. Fun show. If you haven't checked that out, do check that out. But this is a show where she's talking to a lot of different people in the food space. Her first guest is Harsh Mariwala, legend in his own time. I think you'll really, really enjoy that show. But with that, we hope to see you again next week.
Have you ever wondered how successful people do their thing? How do they navigate the challenges they often face? Are you wondering about the future of restaurants, film, education, technology, and everything else in between? Hi, I'm Gauri Devi Dayal, best known for being one of the brains behind The Table, an award-winning restaurant in Bombay. One thing my life as a restaurateur has given me is the opportunity to meet with some truly inspiring people, most often just by chatting with strangers at the community table. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about learning the new dimensions of business and understanding how different people swim this sea. It's an opportunity for me to pick their brains and ask them all the questions on my mind, whether it's about learning from their past experiences or talking about future trends. Through their journeys, stories, and insights, I hope you too, like me, will come away inspired and energized. So come, join me every Wednesday with your favorite drink, because this round is on me.